For some reason, this is acting up this morning. So if it cuts out and you still want to hear what I'm going to say, please wait. I mean, that's just kind of, if you don't want to hear what I say, then you're probably going to be glad for my cutting out. Ace Ventura. He didn't think you'd come to church and hear that word. Ace Ventura, the pet detective. And the Riddler. And a lawyer who could not tell the truth. Andy Kaufman. And the Grinch. And then about 12, 13 years ago, Jim Carrey played the part of Bruce Almighty. Funny movie. Probably rated where I shouldn't advertise it in church, but nonetheless. You know the actor. Actually, one of the movies before that, Jim Carrey played the in Dumb and Dumber. Okay? But he went from being dumber to playing God, which is probably not a bad gig to get if you can get it. When you think of everything that he has done. Now, if you're not familiar with the movie Bruce Almighty, it shows when a very ambitious television reporter is temporarily given the powers of God. Well, needless to say, if anything with Jim Carrey, hilarity ensues very quickly in that role, including scenes of canine toilet training and other just really absolutely bizarre things. But the movie goes through the entire story and it ends with something just very powerful and very serious. And that is to make sure that you count your blessings. Jim Carrey put it this way when being interviewed after the movie came out. The problem is not seeing your blessings is a common thing for a lot of people. That's what we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about it in a couple different lights. First of all, yeah, I know we're about 6 weeks out from Thanksgiving. But it is my favorite holiday. So I guess since I have the mic, I get to talk about whatever I like. Whatever God lays on my heart, too. And we're going to talk about the passage that we read in Luke where Jesus had healed the lepers. But there was a part of the movie that I found it very interesting, and I got to read that. I got to make sure I'm reading this correctly. There was a line in the movie that was significant to Carrey, and he said it was this. When Bruce tells God, I just gave everyone what they wanted, thinking that was the role of God. Someone would ask for something, and they would get it. Santa Claus-like, if you've been a good little boy or a good little girl. There's one particular scene where Carrey he has the power, and people begin praying that they win the lottery. Those of you who've seen the movie know where I'm going with this, I think. The idea was that everybody who bought a ticket had the winning numbers, and when they had to split the money, everybody got their dollar back. Because everybody won. Not exactly what people had in mind. But he says, the response from God to Carrey's character, since when does anyone have a clue about what they want? I think I could stop there. We want We think we want the house, we think we want the car, we think we want this certain relationship, and we have no idea what we really want. What we really need is freedom. What we really need is to be loved. What we really need is to love. The problem is, it is quite often a journey getting us to that point. So it's more than just what do you want. Maybe it's more of what we need. Maybe it's not what our perspective is of what we want or in what we need, but God's perspective of what we want or need that really matters. Although Carrie only played God for a short period of time, one movie, he still has some good insights on that. He says that when he is feeling down, he makes a habit of making a list of things that he is grateful for. In words you don't expect from this Hollywood actor, he puts it this way: I would challenge anyone in their darkest moment to write down what they are grateful for. Even stupid little things, like green grass that they can feel under their feet. A friendly conversation they had with somebody on the elevator. And when you start listing those things, you realize how really grateful and really thankful that you should be. Carrie continues. He says, count your blessings. Remember to be grateful and realize how rich you are. Take time to give thanks for everything that you have been given. You know, if he keeps that up, he could take my place. I mean, when I mentioned that to somebody this week, their comment to me was, that'll preach. And I said, yeah, I know it will. I will on Sunday. But, that whole concept really is what we need. And like the title says, it's not something we just need on the fourth Thursday in November. We need to hear that every single day. We need to feel, we need to realize, we need to say how grateful we are for everything that we have. How thankful we are. And we're going to take a look at the lepers in this story. And it may be a little graphic for some of you, but we're going to look at their lives and find out why they took a different bent on this whole thing. Today's passage from Luke, Jesus is on a road trip, as he normally was. He was moving between Samaria and Galilee, a place where a community in Samaria where Jews did not go. Because Jews and Samaritans really didn't like each other. Matter of fact, not liking each other is probably an understatement. They hated each other. That's why it was such a surprise when Jesus had stopped and was visiting with a woman at the well, because she was a Samaritan. And the disciples, just like, they almost wanted to take Jesus aside and say, hey, Jesus, I know you've only been in this ministry thing for a little bit, but we don't associate with each other. But Jesus was traveling with his disciples between Samaria and Galilee, and as he was getting ready to enter a village, outside of this village was an encampment of individuals who had been afflicted with leprosy. And if you had leprosy at that time, There was one thing that you had to do. If anyone was starting to come close to you, you had to cry out, unclean! Unclean! The reason why is we didn't know why leprosy was being transmitted between people. Was it contact, which was probably more of a medical thing, or was leprosy a punishment from God for something that you did wrong and you had to pay a price? And with leprosy, you had to pay the price because you would lose your family. You would lose any sort of socialization, any sort of physical well-being. Leprosy was an ugly, ugly disease. So as Jesus and the disciples are walking by these members of the community of lepers were calling out, unclean, unclean. And one author says, the closer Jesus and the disciples got, the louder the screams got. Because the lepers figured maybe Jesus didn't hear us. Of course, they didn't know it was Jesus. But maybe he didn't hear it. So we're going to holler out even louder. And Jesus sees them, and he feels, his heart fills with compassion for these individuals. And he comes to them, and he gives them a rather strange command. It would be a strange command for us. He says, go show yourself to the priest and give the offering that you're supposed to give for healing. Now, at that time, only a priest could certify that you had leprosy, and only a priest could certify that you had been healed from leprosy. This is the reason why Jesus told them to go there. So they go. And there was something that was happening. I believe it was as that first step was taken by these 10 individuals, as they took that first step towards Jesus and were going to follow what he asked them to do, I believe something was happening in their bodies. And this horrible disease was beginning to heal. And they were sent out, and as they walked, I think they began to notice that the stubs that were fingers are now fingers. The feet and the toes that had fallen off because of this dreadful disease came back. They began to hear properly because both of their ears were healed, and they reappeared. And all the parts of their body that the leprosy had invaded and had caused that disfiguration started to become whole again. Leper number 10. I don't know if he was the first one out of the chute or not. Just what we call it. Leper number 10 happened to look down and realize he's not struggling on stumps anymore. He is running on healed and clean and complete feet. And he looks down and he sees not the stubs, but he sees fingers. And he starts to get feeling back in his fingers. He starts to get feeling in all of his body as if something had totally transpired, that he becomes whole again. Now, number 10 happens to come back, and as he is giving thanks to God, Jesus' response was this: were not 10 made clean? I think that Jesus' response was, if it was nowadays, it's like, okay, there's one back, let's wait, because there's 9 more that should be coming. Or, where the heck are the other boys? Jesus tell them to do? He said, go and show yourself to the priest. That's where the 9 were headed. They were doing exactly what Jesus told them to do, but there was something missing. They didn't get it. That it wasn't a matter of, if you show yourself to the priest, you will be healed. It was a matter of, Jesus said, go. It was that step that you need to take where Jesus says, okay, now you are healed. Before they even got to the priest. Now, I must admit, this past week I got a statement from my pension plan. I am getting closer to retirement. And I am very concerned about my pension plan, and I looked at the rate of return on my pension plan, and I'll tell you what, it wasn't 10%. But Jesus got 10%.
Well, it's a little bit different story.
Well, yeah, it is a little bit different story. But a 10% return ain't too bad. But yet that's what Jesus had dealt with, was dealing with these lepers that had been healed. A 10% return. Okay. But there is something that moves us beyond the standard of just doing what we're asked to do. If it involves something that we need to be grateful, something that we need to be thankful about, then we best return thanks and be grateful to God for what God is doing in this. Research shows that people who take time to count their blessings may find themselves sleeping better at night. They may find themselves in a better mood during the day. They may find themselves showing improvement in their mental health. They show themselves improving physically. That doesn't mean that if you have a health problem, just thinking good thoughts is going to get you better. But I'm just saying that, this is what we see. And it maybe is because the opposite can affect our health in such a great way.
Oh, my life is going to hell in a handbasket.
Yes, I did say that.
Oh, it's so terrible. I don't have any friends. I don't have this. I don't have that. My truck is only 3 years old and not a new one. My house is only 7,300 square feet and not 10,000 square feet. I know some of you are thinking, yeah, really, I live at the 7,300 square feet. Maybe it's just that whole concept of the way that we look at our lives that we need to change. There was a study done on a college campus where students, freshmen that were having trouble transitioning into school, were brought in and said, you're having problems, you're on this big campus, you're out at Iowa City and there's just 53 bazillion people and you don't know anybody, maybe you know one or two because they came from that same high school you did, but I can't find them on this campus, there's too many. And they brought these students in and they said, start making a list of things that you were grateful for. And yes, students actually said, I'm grateful for the fact that I'm not building up boatloads of student loans because mom and dad are paying. That was one of the things they wrote. Okay, good. Maybe not all of them, but some of them did. And it was the idea of, I got a parking spot close to campus today. Or, when I registered for classes, and even though I'm the last one to register as a freshman, I actually got classes that were right next to each other in the same building. And yeah, I only have 15 minutes to get there, but that was pretty nice. I have to run all the way across campus in 15 minutes.
and so forth and so on. They were looking at things that they felt were a blessing. And we need to do that. The story of the 10 lepers. The biggest surprise is that leper number 10 was a Samaritan. One who hated Jews, or at least their culture hated Jews and Jews hated Samaritans. But it was this one that came back and said thank you to Jesus. He was the only one who counted his blessings in this way, to return and say thank you to the one who had made him whole. Your faith has made you well, Jesus said. That faith of taking that first step and realizing something is changed. Something is different. I didn't sit there in the leper colony and say, well, yeah, the chances of this, this, yeah, it won't happen. All of a sudden, it was like Jesus' response. It's because of what you did in response to what you believe that made you whole. One of the books that I've been reading lately is a book called The Friends of Jesus. It is fictional, but one of the stories in here is about the leper who was healed. The touch of the Master's hand. Jesus had taken hold of Simon's nubby wrist, as if Simon weren't missing fingers. And as if his skin wasn't falling off his bones. And he said, Simon, my son, open your eyes. Simon did as he was told, and what he saw was the most beautiful sight in all of his life. Jesus was still holding his hand. Simon, your faith has healed you. Go show yourself to the priest. Yes, Lord, I will. Yes. Simon stayed on his knees. He was in the presence of God, and he could feel it into the depth of his very soul. Now, this story is about maybe when Jesus had come back a second time, and Simon was the one to finally say, hey, I realize this guy is for sure. By the touch of the Master's hand, he had been healed. Simon left his things and rushed to the city gates. Clean again, he had no trouble passing through them. Relief washed over him with every breath. His friends would welcome him back, he just knew. He would be respected among his peers, invited to their dinners. He would find Anna, his wife, and the girls, and pray that it wasn't too late to bring them home. He was healed. Simon ran to the temple and rushed inside. The religious leaders were all meeting at the time, and at once they looked up as he entered the building. Simon had been one of them at one time in this fictional story. Simon? What happened? The chief priest stood with his mouth open. It was Jesus. Simon searched the face of his former peers. Jesus came by the leper colony and he healed me. His pronouncement was met by silence. The Sadducees and the Pharisees whispered among themselves, their faces dark with distrust. And suddenly Simon remembered. Remember the 10 lepers that came here a few weeks ago? Surely you saw them. They were healed by Jesus too. And now I have been healed. The high priest says, take off your cloak. Simon was happy to comply. He ripped off his outer garment. See? He held out his arms for Jairus and his other friends to see. I've never been better. Jesus did this. Not a word was said. Not Isaac, not Joseph, not any of them. Jairus looked at him. a man of great pride and confidence. And he said, "And now, Simon, do you believe that Jesus is the Messiah?" "Well, of course. He's Emmanuel, God with us. Isn't this proof?" And the high priest cleared his throat and said, "Simon, you are still not welcome here. I'm sorry." Simon says, Are you serious?" Jairus' face had no expression on it. "Yes, you need to go." "But Jairus, I'm healed. You're my friends." "No." Jairus shook his head. "We do not associate with lepers, healed or not." The response of the people in authority could not even be changed by the fact that one of their colleagues had been healed of this dreaded disease. Fictional? Yeah, I get it. But still, I think very accurate in the fact that nothing that Jesus could do would change the minds of the religious leaders of his day. Nothing. But yet Jesus kept on making a difference in the lives of people in his community. So, when he got up this morning, did you hear the alarm go off? I did. It wasn't the alarm on my clock. It was the alarm in the other bedroom that the children had gotten up. But it was an alarm nonetheless. And I just wanted to roll over, like so many of us all the time, and they just want to pull the pillow up the head and ignore the noise. It wasn't going away. It was like that alarm clock that doesn't have a snooze button on it. You kept hearing it. And so you get up, and you walk in, and you say, "All right, fine, I gotta splash some water on my face and wake up." And I turned the spigot, and you know what happened? Water came out. And you're sitting there going, "What is he talking about?" Yeah, water came out. Do you know how many people in this world wish they had a spigot? Let alone to have water come out when they turn it on? And I splashed the water on my face. And I turned around and I got the towel and I kind of patted, how many people don't have that? And I got up and I walked into the other bedroom and there were my grandchildren. Chit-chattering away like little boys like to do at 7:30 in the morning. Or 3:30 in the morning, Sam. Right? Chit-chattering away. And then we go on and on and on. And this was just the first half hour I was up. I've already got a list of things to be thankful for, and yet, do I stop and take a moment to say thank you? Do we stop and say thank you? It is traditional at Thanksgiving around many tables to give thanks to God for different things that happen in our lives. But why not every day? Why not every day that we can say thank you for what we have in our lives? I was given a sign that I have hanging in my office. It says this. It says, "The things that you take for granted are things that someone is asking God to provide for them today." There's a roof over my head. There's my best friend lying beside me. I can hear the children. I can get up, I can walk into the kitchen and open the refrigerator, and there is something in there other than spoiled milk. There is something in there. I can go over and I can go to my medicine chest and I can pull out the medication that I have to take every day, and it's there, paid for. I can go out into through the garage and I pass two vehicles that both run. I can walk over to church, I put my key in the switch, and I turn it, and it opens. You're saying, you're crazy, Rich. No, I'm not. I'm learning all the time that I need to be thankful for what I've got. Thanksgiving is not just a day that falls at the end of November. Thanksgiving needs to be a lifestyle that you and I experience in life. Leper number 10. Person number 1. Thanks, gracious God, for all